I remember girls having to leave school in a cab with their mom because of the behaviour of the girls at the school, running them down, calling them this, calling them that. It was a really, really toxic environment. Hey girlfriend, thank you very much for joining me today. We went live this week with the Curl Power podcast and I've had some really great feedback so far, so thank you for joining me on this crazy journey into podcasting. So yeah, it's a real thing now. It lives outside of my head, not just inside of my head. And if you're listening to this, you are part of this journey too. Thank you. My first episode was a bit of a summary, actually, just telling you about what you can expect from the show and giving you a little snippet of my first 3 guest interviews that I got lined up for you. The next episode was all about my experience of sustaining a spinal cord injury during a pandemic and what that taught me. And my first guest episode, which went live on launch day, was with Charlotte Williams. She is the founder of 76 Inclusive Marketing Agency. So I would definitely recommend you go back and check those out after you have finished with this episode. And in this episode, I'm going to be telling you the awkward truth about my experience of growing up mixed race, Black Caribbean, white British in 1980s, 1990s Birmingham, England. I'll talk about feeling out of place, being told that I think I'm too nice, begging friends, moving schools, and about being the tough one. See, I see the human experience as being like an onion. So at the very core of it, you've got who you were at the very beginning, this little baby, this little mini human that's like a sponge taking it all in. And then as you get older and as you experience different things in life, these life-changing experiences that don't even actually have to be that significant, but all of these different things that form who we are become like the layers of this onion. And then before you know it, on the outside, you've got this slightly toughened skin, which is just a symptom of the fact that it's been the closest to the elements and it's weathered and it's all a bit rough and a bit tough. Sometimes we just need to peel back the layers of those onions and get back to who the baby is. So, who was I when I was a baby? I was born in Birmingham in the cold autumn of 1983. Actually, I was born on the wettest day of the year, which is a random fact that I happen to know. My mum, she is called Debbie. She's a wonderful woman. She was born on an island called Dominica, which is in the Caribbean. It is known as the Nature Isle of the Caribbean, and it has got a river for every day of the year. It is stunning. It's absolutely beautiful. So it's no wonder that my mother is such a beautiful, natural being. And my dad, Steve, he was born in England, in a place called Gloucestershire. And when I came along, he already had a son, so I was a little sister to a big white brother. So yeah, my mum's black and my dad's white. Back in that day, that wasn't that common at all. It was like people used to be almost gobsmacked when I would say that my dad was white and my mum was black. It was always like, oh really? People always made the assumption that because I was mixed race, I was going to have a white mum and a Jamaican dad. And the amount of times that when people saw my dad, they were like, oh, that's your dad? Yeah, that's my dad. What were you expecting? Or like worse still, the times when like we're out in town and I can see people looking at us like they think that that's like my sugar daddy or something, and I'm just like, no, that's my dad. And then I'm like, hi dad, just letting everybody know that it's my dad. This is my dad. This is not my sugar daddy. And he's always like, why are you always calling me dad when we're out? You don't have to keep saying dad. I know I'm your dad. And I'm like, yeah, but nobody else does. So growing up, we grew up very close in proximity to my mum's dad and my granddad Lewis, man. Oh, God bless my granddad Lewis. I grew up so close to him. I was like his first grandchild as well, and the first child of his his daughter, who's his eldest child. So it was just, we had a really, really special relationship. We'd go around to his house on a Sunday and he'd be cooking up some food in the kitchen and he'd be teaching me everything, showing me all of the different vegetables that he was putting into his pots and teaching me how he'd make all these different things. And then he'd be telling me all about Dominica and the different places there and just how beautiful it is. And he always did his best to really instill into us a sense of who we are and where we came from on my mum's side, which I think was really important. I think it just gave me a real firm foundations in who I was racially. It was always such a treat to go around there, and on a Sunday afternoon he'd have a little packet of rainbow drops for us. We'd have a packet of cheese and onion crisps and a carton of Ribena. There'd always be like wildlife programs on the TV. And it would just be an educational time while we were there, just filled with so much love. And I just felt so loved by him that the first opportunity he actually paid for us all to go out to Dominica so that we could experience it and so we could see where we came from. So that, alongside trips to like market with him on a Saturday, and yeah, we just had a really, really special and close relationship, and I'm so, so grateful for that. My mum's got brothers as well. You know, we were all in Brum, so we were all really close, and we just had a really good, solid relationship. And then we had my dad's side of the family, who all sort of lived in slightly more remote places. I mean, where we lived in Birmingham was predominantly white, but, you know, some of the places where my dad's family lived out in the country and stuff like that, definitely, we definitely feel a bit different when we were there, that's for sure. I always felt sort of very aware. Whenever I went out of any sort of major city, really, I always had a sense of feeling very self-aware that I didn't look like the other people that were there. Because at home, it just was what it was, you know what I mean? We were just a family. It was all love. Like, our family came from a place of love. So going out the house, even without truly being conscious, there was a definite sense that I felt as though I didn't really fit in some places. And there'd be times when we go to places, and I suppose to the outside eye looking in, they wouldn't really see anything, but you just feel things, don't you? And there's just looks and there's just vibes. And I became very aware of being in situations where I just didn't feel entirely comfortable. I do remember one very early memory, which was we were actually up in Scotland. I remember being at some sort of outdoor sale, and I remember my mum getting really upset, and my mum started crying, and I can't even remember my brother being there, so I must have been really young, or I just can't remember him being there. But either way, I'm talking about like 5 and under. Mum was crying, and I remember saying to my dad, like, what's wrong with mummy? And dad said, oh, you know, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was along the lines of the fact that people were looking at mummy because mummy looked different to them or something like that. And I just remember, yeah, my mum being really upset and just feeling those vibes at that stage of, obviously you don't ever want to see your mum upset, do you? And I couldn't properly compute it, but I knew that something wasn't right. I wouldn't consciously say I knew about race at that stage, but there was definitely an awareness of it, but not a conscious awareness of it. And I think that evolved as I got older, and more so with the input of other people and their comments around race and my identity, more so than my own conclusions, until I got to secondary school, really. But I do remember a time when I must have been at junior school, and I went to a predominantly white school. I did have a couple of black friends there, hold tight Sabrina, still friends till this day, but it was a predominantly white class. Yeah, so most of my friends were white at school. Most of the Disney princesses were white, apart from Aladdin. Jasmine. Obviously Aladdin's not a Disney princess, but yeah, I can't remember any representation as far as Disney went growing up. Just all of the programs and all of the bands, and I just didn't see myself represented. And again, it's just that feeling of feeling not quite part of something, feeling a sense of difference. And I remember the one time actually going into the bathroom at my mum and dad's house and getting talcum powder and just patting it all over my face, which I can sort of laugh at a bit now, but that's actually quite sad, isn't it? To think, you know, I was putting talcum powder on my face to see what I would look like if I was white, and to see, you know, what would that be like for me to feel white? Because to me, all of the depictions of beauty that I was seeing were white. I wasn't seeing anyone that looked like me. And what does that do to a kid? Well, I know what it does, because I'm the almost 38-year-old product of having to go through these different experiences. And there's been a lot of unpicking that I've had to do. I remember this was at nursery. I remember being at nursery and being asked to paint a self-portrait. And I painted this picture. And in my head, I must have known that my mum was black and my dad was white, or that there was that sort of a difference, because I mixed a black paint and I mixed a white paint. And I just remember thinking, oh, why, like, I'm grey in this painting. Like, I don't look grey in real life. How is that not working? I remember my dad explaining to me, it's because daddy's not, he's not exactly white. He's more of a peachy colour, and mummy's not really black. It's more of it's a rich brown colour. And yeah, so bless poor confused little me, just thinking, oh yeah, mum's black, dad's white, mix the paint, voila, there we go. Beautiful mixed race self-portrait. No. Definitely not. It wasn't really until I got to secondary school that I started to get a real sense and a real idea and understanding of race and the impact of that on society, really. And we just grew up in this family that was filled with love and difference, and we knew that, but it was all good. Like, there weren't no drama. Like, I knew who I was. I was born from a black woman. I was very comfortable with that. I was born to a white father. I was very comfortable with that. That it just wasn't a thing. And then secondary school happened. Secondary school. Oh, I dread to think of my little daughter now going off to secondary school. It's just like being taken out the frying pan and into the fire. That was just a baptism of, secondary school. Not my finest time. Didn't enjoy it. Had a really, really, really difficult time. At school, I was a really tall kid. Like, I was abnormally tall at school. It's sort of leveled out now. I'm like 5'9", and I've been that size since I was probably at junior school. I just had this mad growth spurt really early, so I was just this really tall kid with this big bushy hair, and I was all brown, and I just stood out like a sore thumb. By the time I went to secondary school, all of the girls there thought that I was in sixth form. When I went in for my intro day, because I was in casual clothing, everybody thought I was in sixth form, but I was just coming up from junior school. I was that big. So when people don't truly understand what age you are, they treat you differently as well. So they weren't taking into consideration my sensitivities. And the fact that I was just a little kid, I was being treated as though I was somebody much older, which I found really difficult. So when I first moved up to secondary school, my friendship circle was just the same bunch of girls really that were at my junior school. There was a group of us that had all moved up to this secondary school, so we were all sort of hanging around together. One of the things that I did notice was that it felt very segregated. Like, there were clear pockets in terms of like racial separation. So there was quite a large Asian community at the school, and they all tended to hang around together. Then all the white girls were hanging around together, and all the black girls were hanging around together. And I was like, whoa, this is a bit different, isn't it? But I just stuck with my friendship group. Some time starts going by, and then you start to meet other girls from the school. You start to make new friends. And that's when I started to feel like, I definitely feel a bit out of place now. And I remember some girls sort of referring to me as being a coconut because I was hanging around with a lot of the white girls at the time. I was like, oh, well, I don't want to be seen as a coconut, do I? So I started hanging around with the girls that were calling me a coconut a bit more. I made a bigger group of friends there that were largely black girls. But I just had this sense still of not really feeling as though I was fitting in. Like, at home, within my black family, it was all good. Nobody made me feel any different. But now this group of friends, I started to feel that real sense of difference. And people were pointing it out. People were saying to me, oh, you're not black. Oh, you think you're so nice. You think you're nice. I don't know who you think you are. You think you're slick, blah, 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 all of this sort of stuff. And then I started thinking, I don't think I'm nice. What does that even mean? I don't think I'm nice. Like, I didn't have masses of confidence as a kid. And things certainly weren't getting any better at this stage. So it was all of, putting up with all of this. Oh, you think you're nice and you're a sket. And I'm like, hang on a minute, what is a sket? Like, I haven't even had a boyfriend. How can I be a sket? But all of these sort of ideas about who I was were being forced on me, and I hated it. And all I wanted was nothing more than just to be accepted and to be a part of this group. And I didn't want to feel any separation between me and them, and I certainly didn't want to feel any separation between me and my mum. And one of the things that I found extremely difficult was when some of the girls started to say things about my mum, and saying, oh, your mum thinks she's too nice because she's with a white man. I don't know who your mum thinks she is. And I'm just like, my mum don't think she's anybody. But that was it. The reason that they said that was because they came to call for me one day, and I was at my mum's house. Well, I was at my mum and dad's house, and I was upstairs, and the girls knocked the door, and I was going to come down in a minute. And then my mum had answered the door and said, yeah, she'll be down in a minute, whatnot. And then the girls knocked again, and my mum was like, I've already told you she's going to come down in a minute. Basically, don't trouble my door again. And then I could hear from upstairs, because there's a window that leads out to the path next to the house, and I could hear the girl saying, I don't know, her mum thinks she's nice, you know, her mum thinks she's something special, and all this sort of stuff. But anyway, went out, hung around with the girls, and I was just in this desperate bid to want to be accepted. And I remember some of the girls at the school asking to do my hair, because my hair used to be long when I was a kid, and they'll brush my hair, but then they'd do things like deliberately yank it and tug it and pull it and stuff like that. And they say, oh, you think you're so nice because your hair's all long like that? And I was just like, I really don't think I'm nice. I didn't want to be seen as though I felt that way about myself. And in fact, that's had a very detrimental impact on me to this very day. I remember TLC were like really big at this time. So I went up to secondary school in 1995. So it was like the finest time of R&B, and I was a massive TLC fan. And I decided that I was going to cut off all my hair, and I wanted to try and have a hairstyle that imitated T-Boz. So I remember one school holiday, I was like, yes, I'm going to get this T-Boz hairstyle, and it's going to be great. And so I went and got this hairstyle, chopped off all my hair, and had it all pressed. Yeah, man, I loved it. I loved it because I felt like my icon. And I went into school, and the girls were like, you think you are who do you think you are with that hairstyle? You think you're something special. You think you are way too nice. You're not black. What are you even doing with that hairstyle? And it was just like, whoa. I just found it really hard. And I remember being in the toilets one day at school, and the girls were in the toilet. They're all doing each other's hair and sharing brush and blah blah blah. And I said to one of them, oh, can I borrow your brush please? And they were like, no, and just making me feel really small. And that really had a real significant impact on me. So I hated going to school. It got to a point where I hated going to school, and to be quite frank, I didn't even want to live. But that school was quite notorious. I can think of several girls before me who left that school because of this sort of behaviour. I remember girls having to leave school in a cab with their mom because of the behaviour of the girls at the school, running them down, calling them this, calling them that. It was a really, really toxic environment. And for whatever reason, there was just this thing where mixed race girls were just getting it. They just weren't popular. It was just this rhetoric of, oh, you think you're too nice, and therefore we need to put you in your place. And it was something that happened time and time again. The school was problematic. I got to a point where I was pretending to be sick every day so I didn't have to go to school because I hated it. I was just a sensitive little soul, and all I wanted was just to fit in and to be loved by my friends. You know, in fact, I remember at Christmas, oh my God, I was such a little beg friend. At Christmas, like buying jewellery from, what's the Argos? I can't remember Elizabeth Duke. I was buying Elizabeth Duke jewellery for the girls at school in some sort of bid to be accepted. And how sad is that? Bless poor little me. But then it got to a point where I remember coming home from school one day and going upstairs into my bedroom, and I got my school tie and I just pulled it around my neck, and I pulled it and I pulled it and I pulled it, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror as my face started going blue, and I just thought, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And then with that, my mum and dad came home from work and I just heard the door open downstairs, and then I was just like, oh, so I stopped what I was doing. And I think that was the night that then it all just came out, and I told my mum and dad, look, I'm having a really hard time at school. I don't want to go back there. They're making my life a misery. The next day, my mum and dad went into the school and had words, and I was out of that school and into a new one on the other side of the Easter holiday. It definitely had a massive impact on me and my identity and how I saw myself, and how I found myself feeling as though, I wasn't wanted by a certain aspect of that community, which for me was deeply painful, because I'd never felt separated from the black community like that before. Like, I knew that I wasn't black, and I wasn't trying to claim that I was black, but I just didn't see myself as separate in that regard. So it was quite an eye-opening experience. And then I moved schools, and in the other school it was like the contrast. It was a lot less diverse over there, but I had a much better experience. So growing up, for a long time into my adulthood, even to today, I'd say I'm still impacted by that experience, and I haven't always felt empowered or comfortable to own truly all of who I am. A lot of that was to do with other people's input and other people's hurt and other people's pain. I took on other people's traumas and accepted them as my own without even seeing that they were just projecting on me. But sometimes we have to mature to be able to see that. I wish that I could just go back now and give my younger self a hug and just say, listen, babes, man, it's not about you. Don't take it on like that. And then on the contrast to all of that, it was like at my new secondary school, it's just people would automatically think that I was hard because I was half black. Like, there was just some sort of idea that I was tough because I was tall, really tall, and because I was half black. I was like, I felt as though I had to play this role in a way of like sometimes getting into situations that I wasn't comfortable in. I didn't really want to have to stand up against people, because people would be like, yeah, come on, go and fight. And I'm like, yeah, but really, I'm a peacekeeper. I'm a peace-loving peacekeeper, and I'm not about that fight life. And now I feel like I'm being egged on to go and fight because everyone thinks I'm tough, but getting me into situations that I don't want to be in. But I did use it to my advantage as well, because if there were ever situations where I was seeing people getting bullied or people just not being treated very nicely, I'd always try and stand up for people where I could as well. So took a long time for me to figure out who I was, and there was a lot of going along with things to please other people. And all of that really stemmed from a bit of a lack of confidence. So isn't it interesting how things play out? And I think it's easy to forget, actually, quite often, we think about people being mean and people acting out, and there's usually reasons for that. When you get into human psychology, there's usually reasons for people doing what they do. And I'm not saying that all behaviour should be excused, but I do like to try and understand what's at the core of it. So that's a little bit about me, where I come from, and what happened when I was growing up. Thank you very much for joining me during this episode. I would love to know if you've got your own experiences of fitting in or not fitting in. Please do get in touch either via the socials at the Curl Squad, or you can hit me up using email at info@thecurlsquad.com. I'd definitely love to hear about what you experienced growing up too. If you did find this episode relatable, please share it with a friend who might have had a similar experience. And just tell a friend to tell a friend, and I will look forward to catching you again on the podcast real soon. Have a good week.